Thank you so much, hosts. Just want to applaud my sister, the previous speaker. I was very impressed by your contribution there. Okay, back to the topic. Um, Qatar and Al Jazeera, they used as tools to destabilize Africa. The answer is obviously yes. Not Al Jazeera alone on that case. We have CNN, we have what do you call it, Sky News. All I can say, what I can say, all Western medias, they are used to destabilize, in fact, uh, Africa and other part of the world that is not Western favors actually. Uh, Back to the Al Jazeera documentary, I watched I think twice that documentary, trying to comprehend what is actually about that documentary. But for me, something is not adding up there. Uh, is there corruption in Zimbabwe? Yes. Is the corruption is there? We don't deny that, and everybody knows that. Uh, in Africa, in the world, corruption is there. But in that documentary, what I don't understand is that a journalist posed as okay, investigative journalists posed as investors, but on their conclusion, they comment on corruption, they comment on debt money, but for them, they investigate somebody posing as genuine investors. Okay, for me, it would make sense if they uh, posed as a criminals. Okay, then would see the reaction of those implicated in the in that documentary. Then okay, I would convinced okay, these guys for sure they are involved in illicit money laundering and they are involved in gold smuggling. But okay, if someone is, if yourself come to me and say, okay, look, I'm an investor and I welcome you. Okay, then you after that, uh, you go back and say, okay, I I investigated Chamber. Is doing corruption. Okay, in what basis? In which basis are you saying I'm doing corruption on that case? For me, I think that investigators they are not properly trained how to investigate a case because even if we can go to court right now today with that documentary, we can't win our case because there's no evidence there. I don't know, maybe in part two, part three, part four, or part five of that documentary. But for now, in that part one, there's no evidence. And it is clear on that evidence um, that gold from Zimbabwe, it never been smuggled. It went through the process. Uh, Even that lady with that name Rushaya, the time she was found, she stated it clearly and she never stamped or something like that. She stated it clearly. If you want, they want to invest in Zimbabwe's gold, they have to deposit that certain amount of money uh, she mentioned there in the Fidelity account. Okay, who is Fidelity in Zimbabwe? Fidelity is that institution which is responsible for, for, for the selling of gold. So once, how can you at the end claim that okay, Fidelity is smuggling gold, of which it is the right institution to do so, to have the mandate to do so. So for me, something is not adding up. I think the agenda there is for that project is for is for regime change agenda. There, because we see the interview of the
Please
opposition.
prepare to land, Simba.
Okay, okay, thank you, my lord. What is suspicious on that documentary? They've got they interviewed an opposition candidate there in that documentary, not under the what do you call it, secret camera, but he knew that I was interviewing. He was commenting on that documentary. What it means for us who's watching that documentary, it's so something is not adding up. It's suspicious. For me, it's suspicious there. So for me, I can say is Western project, which tries to destabilize our country, destabilize our region, destabilize our continent. Thank you.
Thank you, Timba. Bertha, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for having me. Um, I would just like to say my initial reaction when I watched the Al Jazeera documentary, obviously my knee jerk reaction was shock. Because I feel like whenever you speak to an ordinary person, and the first thing that comes out of your mouth is money laundering, gold smuggling, caught on camera, all of these words. Obviously, your initial reaction is to reject what you're seeing, to reject whoever's being painted as the villain in that documentary. Um, and I think also journalists, especially of these big companies, they're so good with language and wording that even an intelligent person, uh, at first glance, you might think, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Obviously, how are these people being allowed to do this? But then if you do even a minute of research, you realize that, first of all, I think for the first time I watched it, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? Then the second time around, I looked up and I happened to see the FBI lady talking about how Zimbabwe is not allowed to sell its gold, so they're trying to choke. And listen to the word. I think she actually used the word choke. They're trying to choke out the buying and selling of Zimbabwean dollars by Zimbabweans. And to me personally, I thought to myself, that's very interesting wording, choke. You want to choke the gold industry. What's happening is this gold is being bought in Zimbabwe, yes. It's being bought in Zimbabwe from local miners, and it benefits those local miners. And you see on our social media, for example, you have these young men, particularly, who start to flex their gold, start to flex their newfound riches. And this is, it seems obvious now that this is where that money is coming from. And for me personally, uh, looking back at it, I really have learned in the past maybe decade, I've learned not to take everything that comes from an external force. I've learned not to take it as is, because everybody has an agenda, and usually people in one country have their own agenda. They would want to do whatever helps them the most, and they have um, what do you call this, foreign policies, and those foreign policies are not necessarily good for whatever country they have written them for. They're whatever they can get the most out of whatever these countries are. So I've often taken a lot of hate and a lot of heat because I'm MDC, and I am not ashamed to say that I am. That is what I am. I am MDC. I'm grandfathered in. And I've often taken heat for saying have I would rather have discourse with ZANU PF and all of those quote unquote monsters in ZANU PF, so-called monsters. I would rather them than the white monsters, because the numbers and the blood on these black leaders' hands compared to the blood on the hands of these quote unquote white saviors, it's not even a comparison. And those are black people. You would in my opinion, you would think, yes, they have children here, they have families here, they want the best to happen here. right? So I think it's quite interesting when you then start to say, wait a minute, how can we side with these people talking about wanting to choke Zimbabweans? How can we side with these people who want to choke Zimbabweans? Because what will happen is in 2008, we had a crisis in the banks. There was no money. Once we had the US dollar, things got a lot better. Things got significantly better for ordinary people. And for, yes, it also got better for the elites, but for ordinary people, it got a little bit better. Now you are taking that lifeline and you want to completely destroy it just based on what Al Jazeera said. I think that's ridiculous. Um, you cannot, that would be scoring an own goal. And I like how people say they were talking to Zimbabweans in the documentary. No, they weren't. They talked to CC propagandists, well-known propagandists. For example, Hopewell Chinono. Sorry.
Don't even worry about it.
um, I like to say that in those circles for those people, I'm one of their favorite villains. And in my opinion, they're not to be trusted. So when you see somebody who's obviously they have an agenda that they've been trying to push, everybody knows this about Hopewell, everybody knows this about BT, and there's this clip of BT looking very sad and pouty mouthed, and you look at it and you're like, is this the same BT who goes on these swearing, disgusting, vile, just rants? Have you ever heard BT talk? And then you see him there with his little hands folded between his legs, and you're gonna let that fool you? BT. I mean, honestly, if that's all that it takes to fool us,
A
I
big
mean,
plan.
sorry, yeah. If that's what it takes to fool us, honestly, I think we just need to do better. And just to the final point is we have to beware of these warmongers and sanction beggars, because the first people to be disenfranchised if anything were to happen, if war were to start, if they were successful in choking us, the first people to suffer are the ones that these guys are trying to exploit, and that is the urban poor. The urban poor will be the first to suffer. They're the ones getting this money. Yes, it's under the table. Yes, maybe there are better ways to do it. Maybe there are better ways to do it. But sanctions busting is not something that we should be punished for. It's not something that we should look down on for ourselves. And maybe the very last thing, the one thing that I had an issue with on the Zimbabwean side was the issue of national security. Honestly, having Al Jazeera or whoever have their cameras put up in our airport, having them so close to the president, to have his ambassadors talking the way that they were talking, the way they were talking wasn't good. Let's not conflate that. The way they were talking was not good. They're basically admitting almost incriminating having them there. So I think we really need to look at national security, and we need maybe to have maybe some sort of investigation or hearing to listen, if you are going out and you're talking on behalf of Zimbabwe, number one, the way you talk, I think it's very important. We can't descend into this type of language and this type of negotiation style. It's not right. It's just not right. And then having people be able to put surveillance in our country with our top officials, honestly, we cannot have that. So I think that's my opinion on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bertha. Dr. Matsanga, I think you were right to call the women up. They've put up a spark in this space. Thank you, Bertha. That was a really interesting contribution. Dr. Matsanga, I know we're shutting down, but we have two new speakers. I'm going to allow Son of Kenzie and Truths to go ahead. And maybe we can hear from Shava and Hulu before we shut down the space. Son of Kenzie, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh wow, Bertha, I must say I now have a bit of respect for the MDC. You spoke like a true Zimbabwean lady. You spoke like a true African lady. And Doc was right. Truth, you're right. The ladies have indeed put up a spark. One thing we need to get to understand now, which Bertha has actually just alluded to, is the fact that we should not blame ourselves for trying to fix the injustice within the wrongs. People talk of doing and selling gold within the laws. Whose laws when we are under sanctions? That's the question that we should be asking ourselves. Then going back to the issue of Al Jazeera, I am a broadcaster, as I mentioned before. Al Jazeera actually dramatize things. They sensitize things. They take out certain conversations, create narratives out of conversations that they want to actually relate. So ours is not only about busting the sanctions. We should look further, Doc. You with a radio station that plays some beautiful African music. You played some Oliver Mtukudzi. I was touched. It almost brought a tear to my eye. We need to collaborate, like another gentleman mentioned earlier on, with independent television stations across Africa. Mine is one of those that are keen on that. Let us create our own Al Jazeera. Let us speak to the governments, Doc. And I hope that this information that you said you're recording will definitely get to the president of Zimbabwe. This is a petition I would like to put out there as an official petition that we do not want Al Jazeera in our territory anymore. If they can get Russia Today off the airwaves, can Zimbabwe get Al Jazeera off our airwaves? Please, Doc, can you relate this? The official numbers on this Twitter space are huge and are quantifying and justifiable to become an official petition to the government of Zimbabwe. We do not want to see Al Jazeera, and we do not want to see the second and third and fourth documentaries on our platform and within our borders and our territories. Then, Bertha, thank you very much for raising the issue of national security. The people that were involved are actors, so they will find ways and opportunities to get around in any environment. If they were genuine thugs or mafias, definitely with the Zimbabwean security, they would have been trapped and caught. But however, in closing, I would like to just say before I land that the issue of us blaming ourselves for selling gold outside the normal situation and outside the normal circumstances is not right. The issue of allowing American dictatorship in our land is not correct. We will continue to fight the struggle. We see it in South Africa. We see of the struggle are being reversed slowly but surely. Our ideologies as Africans are being eroded. And Doc, this is your duty and your place to start teaching and educating those young kids of the African ideology. I've heard a lot of these young guys, and unfortunately it is guys, the born frees. Women, I salute you, the young generation. And I say to you guys, take the baton by the stick. It's a woman's world, Bertha. Please run it. Us as men and the born free generation, the men are the ones who are letting us down. We are the most negative individuals. America has the worst president, a president that doesn't even concentrate, that knows nothing of what he's doing, but they still call him Mr. President. Us as Africans, and especially Zimbabweans, we are ambassadors of our own destiny and of our own countries. What we say and how we say it affects not only us as individuals in our personal opinions, but the rest of our families back home, wherever they are on the African continent. Ladies, thank you very much. I am happy and I'm proud, and I believe that our future is great. Al Jazeera is Mickey Mouse. And in closing, can Al Jazeera be taken off our airwaves? Please. Thank you.
Truths, please go ahead. Thank you, Sano Kenzie.
Thank you so much. So I will try to concentrate on what I would like to get across to the space. So, as an Eritrean, okay, born in Eritrea, raised in America, served in the military here in America, I have an understanding of what the agenda is. There is good part of the world and bad, evil part of the world. I am flabbergasted by the idea that one guy came here earlier and said that why should he side with his own brothers? When it comes to identifying what we're working on, um, that's just shocking to me. Like, you have to solve the issue with your brother on your own. If you don't, if you bring a third party, now you have made your brother even way further than you. The issue is not that this article was written and we're all over it. That's not the issue. The issue is the funds that are coming to write articles like this is to create wars for Africans. We are going to fight now that we are awakening as a whole continent. And we have to do a due diligence by speaking about each country as a country. Whenever it's convenient for Al Jazeera, they want to bash the whole continent. Whenever it's convenient, they want to talk bad about each country. We are each country, we have our own processes. But do not bash Africans for working on the issues and the traumas that we've been going through. Like, I don't know in how many ways and how many languages I would love to say that. When we are addressing this problem, we need to stay on this problem. The problem is we have an attacker from Qatar, America, always saying that we cannot handle our issues. Africa has been feeding itself, and we are all born and we run nations by deal with billions of dollars on our own, regardless of whatever sanctions, and they have a nerve to say Zimbabwe cannot sell its gold. So in the case of Eritrea, we've been saying, hell no. We have the same breath as you. Okay, we're not gonna just sit down and die. We're gonna farm our land. We're gonna support our people. We're gonna utilize our gold, whatever it takes. We're gonna organize our military and defend ourselves no matter who you send. So that is my recommendation. As far as articles like this, make sure you're on Twitter debunking. Make sure you are writing on a united front. If your issue is you want to fix a policy in your country, that is your obligation and it's your job. Just because you got mad with one guy who did something wrong to you in Zimbabwe or in Eritrea, you're not going to go to the US and come like an opposition party to murder your own brother in the hopes of that country will be destroyed. This is an immature way of handling things. We hear about a lot of quote unquote oppositions that are created with immature little boys. They have no idea what they're doing. All they know is they're so mad over here in the US because some guy treated them wrong in Zimbabwe or in Eritrea or in Ethiopia, and now they want to say we're opposition group. And then guess what? They give them $1 million just so they can go and create other little boys and then destroy the whole nation and create bloodshed. That's what's happening in the East African country today as we speak.
Be
If you
prepared
don't
to
learn
laugh.
from us, if you don't learn from us, whenever there is articles by Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, and all them, it is for a war that's coming out. Do not doubt that. Do not doubt that. That's what's going on. They started with articles. They started with quote unquote opposition groups. They started with weapons that were imported to Ethiopia by the billions of dollars of the US. And guess what? 1 million people were murdered last year. If that's your goal as an African, then you need to question yourself. You need to get mental health counseling. You need to forgive whoever did wrong to you as an individual in your country and start creating better policies. If you want to kill the government, okay, talk about the policy. It is not the humans that are going to be needing to be murdered because if you murder them, somebody else will come after you. Thank you so much, guys, for the space.
Thank you, Mayubuye. Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks a lot,
I
Trisha.
thought you had said I was coming after here.
Sorry, Shava. Mayubuye was here before you.
Thanks, Trisha. I've been listening to a lot of presenters, a lot of speeches. In my language, we say we are even there's an equivalent saying in English that says, "Do not shoot the messenger." Sounds like we are busy shooting the messenger here. I'm sorry. I hear my sister from Eritrea. What's happening in Ethiopia? It's brother killing brother, right? It's sad, and I want to point that out. It is very sad. So what we need to do is introspect here, people. We need to introspect and say, what are we seeing? Right? You do not bait a lake that has no fish. Right? You don't go and fish in a lake that's known not to have fish. You be a fool. Somebody went and baited and fished for you and sent you a camera. Right? I understand what the outfall, the fallouts of this may cause. But let's not fool ourselves sitting here and start blaming. I'm sorry, the speaker before this of ban this, ban that. That's bullshit. I'm sorry, excuse me. It is immature as people. We need to introspect, right? You were talking sanctions busting. That is nonsense. We know this. Gold in Zimbabwe can be exported legally. Okay? We're talking about the millions of dollars that didn't make it back to the country to support the people. If we start having that conversation, let's have it. But let's not sit on these spaces and make it sound like people are stupid. We are not stupid. Money laundering is real.
Sorry, Maibuya, you joined us a little bit late. We requested that
I learned, Trisha. I leave
if
you
you'll
with
let me
that.
speak, if you'll let me speak. When we started this space, we requested that those that make allegations such as millions of dollars not making it back to Zimbabwe to provide facts and proof of those millions of dollars that did not make it back to Zimbabwe, as opposed to giving us blanket statements and opposing what a former speaker has said from her own country. So if you have that information, please, we are keen to share that information. This platform is about sharing information and creating better awareness as Africans. So if you have proof of these millions that did not make it back to Zimbabwe, please go ahead and inbox me and I will pin it at the top there. Shara,
I appreciate that. However, you cannot demonstrate fish that have not been caught. In my analogy, I
I'm not going
started
to
with
speak
that.
to you in Proverbs.
Let's
I'm not
have
going to
that
speak to you in
conversation.
Proverbs. We just want proof. We don't want to speak in Proverbs or Bible verses. This is not the platform. Shava, please, can you go ahead?
Thank you, Trisha, and everyone on the platform. I think I'm speaking as a Zimbabwean, and therefore, as we are looking at the topic that we are having, we are also looking at the documentary that has been done on the Zimbabwean minerals that are being exported. So I think our Zimbabwean politics has become so polarized that people have taken to defend their political positions instead of maybe us taking a look into the real issue that it is at hand. I think that's why some people are saying we don't need to dismiss outright the Al Jazeera documentary. We need to look into the Al Jazeera documentary and see what is real in it. If we discover there are real issues in the Al Jazeera documentary, then we need to ask ourselves questions as Zimbabweans that can help us as Zimbabwe. Because there is no smoke without a fire. So are there anomalies that we can find in the documentary in regards to the way that our minerals are being moved? Yes, there are anomalies that we saw in the documentary in regards to how the minerals are being moved. out of the country. Therefore, what needs to be done to correct the processes that has been put in place by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe through its subsidiary, that is the Fidelity, in terms of the movement of the minerals. That's the number one thing that we need to look at as progressive Zimbabweans that have got the progress and the welfare of Zimbabweans at heart. Then the other issue is there money laundering happening? I think I heard Dr. Chaka acknowledging here that indeed there is money laundering that was happening in Dubai, where the gold was being taken, and also money laundering happened back in Zimbabwe when these people bring money and they don't bring enough of the money that they would have sold, but they declare that they've brought in $1.2 million, when in actual fact they brought maybe $99,000, and they begin to spin, and we don't know how they are getting in the other money now they are using to buy the gold so that they take it out. So there are a lot of loopholes that are there that if we become rational and we remove political jackets from all political divides, we put Zimbabwe, the nation, first, and we want to see what we can do to rectify issues that are coming out from this documentary that is affecting Zimbabwe. There is a lot that we can maybe achieve as Zimbabweans and help to improve from what we have seen being portrayed in the documentary. That's my take on the documentary. Thank you.